In this movie collector instalment, I'll be taking a look at Frank Darabont's 1994 classic, The Shawshank Redemption. It's yet another very good 35mm transfer to go on your shopping list. The Shawshank Redemption appears on many polls and lists as one of the most beloved films of all time, and yet when it was first released, it went by almost totally unnoticed. But I suspect Castle Rock Entertainment knew they had a good film, and they must have lobbied hard for the awards season, because this film got 7 Academy Award nominations in America, and one of those was for Best Picture. And it was that nomination that made people aware of it, and so when it appeared on VHS the following year, it was a huge hit on the rental market. It had cost an estimated $25 million to make, and at the worldwide box office it's estimated to have grossed only $29 million, and you have to remember that's the gross, it's not the net, so around half of that figure remains with the exhibitors, the cinemas and the distributors. So this ran at a loss until that VHS market came to the rescue. This film is based on the Stephen King novella Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, and it's about Andy Dufresne, who's sent to prison, Shawshank Prison, for the murder of his wife and her lover. There he meets Red, played by Morgan Freeman, and the two bond over many years. I think we follow them through 19 years in prison until the eventual ending, which I won't give away here for those few people who haven't seen it. It's a classic film, it's a great film, but it's the relationship between the two main characters, Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins, that really is the standout, and you really do care about what happens to these two characters. You want that happy ending, and in fact the production company insisted that Frank Darabont make sure there was an uplifting ending at the end, and that it didn't just go off how he originally intended, and how apparently it goes off in Stephen King's novella. I did not see this film in the cinema, and I had to wait a couple of years until I stumbled across it. And I said in my last video I've got a bit of a story to tell how I first saw The Shawshank Redemption, and it was when I got on a coach in Colorado. My wife and I were on a coach trip going from one location to another in a day, and we got on there and we walked in slightly late on The Shawshank Redemption. Now, the intention was, you go through on a coach trip through the Rocky Mountains, you're going to look at the scenery. But unfortunately, with The Shawshank Redemption playing on that telly hanging at the front of the bus, there was not really much chance of taking your eyes off it. So that was my first experience of The Shawshank Redemption, and having missed the opening, I then had to catch up on it when we got home, and I think it was VHS rental that quenched our thirst for finding out what had happened at the opening of Shawshank Redemption. But anyway, on that coach trip back, they had another film playing, The Silence of the Lambs, only in America. This was a 35mm shoot, but not anamorphic, so matted down to 1:8:5:1, and indeed that's what we've got on this 4K and the Blu-ray disc in this pack. The sound was DTS-HD 5.1. However, in cinemas this film was listed as Dolby Digital under the Dolby Spectral Recording Digital label. That was how they first started appearing in 93 and 94. Image quality is very good again, and once again reminiscent of watching a film print. It's not quite up to the standard of The Thing I reviewed the week before this review, but very good nevertheless, and I have to say that The Thing, although that is excellent, that is not up to the standard of Apocalypse Now and Jaws, which I believe are the two best 35mm transfers we've seen so far. But it's very good. I don't think there's anything wrong with the 4K cine transfer of this. I think it's more just how the film looked, and evidently The Thing looks slightly better on film or on the original negative than perhaps The Shawshank Redemption did. After we finished watching The Shawshank Redemption, I was interested to compare it to The Thing because that was really fresh in my mind. I didn't feel it was as good, and indeed putting The Thing in immediately did confirm that, but that meant I neglected to look at the Blu-ray. So before recording this review, I've had a look at them both on our second system in our living room, on our television, and on the second 4K disc player in there, and you can markedly see that the 4K is superior to the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is very good, but it hasn't got that vibrant look that brings the 4K to life thanks to HDR. As a result of not watching it in here on the bigger screen, I can't confirm if the definition is better on the 4K to the Blu-ray, but certainly on the television they looked very similar, except once again for the difference that HDR gives us. I suppose I should point out that this film isn't really for children. There are some rather tough prison sex references, and there are also some very brutal beatings in this, so not one for the children. And if I can add what I think of the film, although I think it's an excellent film, it's not one of my favourites, so sorry if that upsets anyone. I do think it's pretty terrific, however. I can understand the love it gets. But for me, I would have felt it was better if we didn't get that definite impression towards the final third or the final act of the film, where it's made obvious that you're supposed to think Andy is innocent. I would have preferred it if it had been a bit ambiguous. Was he guilty, wasn't he? It would have had more of an air of mystery to it, and I would have been even more enamoured with the characters than I already was. Anyway, there are a couple of fairly long extras on this, which I think have all been seen before. One is a Channel 4 retrospective with Mark Commode, but the image quality of that is awful, so be warned of that. Still, we're buying this 4K pack for the film, and I feel like I've just seen the Shawshank Redemption for the first time. Certainly for the first time in the cinema, anyway. So I think that brings us to the end. My next review is planned to be a Clockwork Orange. I've put in the order to HMV. I do like to support HMV because they're our only surviving shop, whereas other sites like Zavvi and Amazon, as far as I'm aware, they haven't got any shops selling music and video on our high streets. So that's where my money tends to go, and that's why. Until the next video, bye bye for now.